Kick it.
Ahoy, mateys, and welcome aboard to This Week in Nickelodeon History. I'm your captain, Captain Eric, and on this episode, we're going to celebrate some Nickelodeon anniversaries that have taken place in between the times of September 18th to September 24th. And within this past week, we actually got an official look at the brand new kart racer Nickelodeon, Kart Racers 3 Slime Speedway, and I have to say, by the third time, I think everything is finally clicking into place as to what the apex of Nickelodeon kart racing games could be. Because slowly but surely throughout these Nickelodeon kart racer games, they've been adding more and more to the overall aesthetic, which, if you go and play the first one, is a very bare bones but playable kart racer. And just simply over time, they have dumped gallons and gallons of slime on top of this game, and I am truly excited to try the third one out. I didn't dive enough into the second game, but man, everything I've seen of this third game has me genuinely excited, and with up to 40 Nicktoons on the roster, with some not even announced, and it's really exciting for the additions they have and for some of the characters that may come down the pipeline. And during the week of this recording, they have two characters that they're teasing to unveil tomorrow, which will be Friday. The silhouettes, to me, are very clearly both Jimmy Neutron and Cindy Vortex. So by the release of this episode, it should be pretty obvious what the characters are that they're teasing. And if I'm right about that, that's a slam dunk for the captain. Two in the pipeline. We'll keep this up week to week. If the Nickelodeon Kart Racers team are planning on doing this every week up until the launch of the game. So yeah, those are my first two picks for the new characters. Jimmy, it's an obvious if you saw any of the leaked screenshots. Jimmy Neutron is very obviously there. Cindy Vortex, though, has not been seen in any sort of screenshots. So that one is simply a guess based off of the silhouettes that they gave, which I think are Cindy and Jimmy flipped. Like, one is upside down and the other one is right side up. And if you just notice the curves of how their hair should be and their cheeks and everything, you can see it. And I can just see the Cindy Vortex skin. And honestly, it makes sense. If you're going to use the Jimmy Neutron license, Cindy is a great character to pull from. I would be shocked if they didn't also include Hugh Neutron as well, with all of the excitement that he has brought to All-Star Brawl. So I hope you're excited for Kart Racers 3 Slime Speedway. Shortly after that game's release, things over here at the home might be a bit different, and certainly in a way to stream, which right now I have internet, I can stream, but it is not a strength of internet that I want to try pushing to its absolute limits. So in the next few weeks, few months, which will open up a space for myself that I'll be able to build from the ground up as a set of some sort for the show, for myself. And through that process, we're going to upgrade the internet of the home. And out of that, once I'm able to stream, it's going to be a weekly affair over here. Once a week, same time. And if we can stretch more than that, then I certainly will do so, because I have a lot of games I'd like to play, get some long plays up on the channel, get some clips around here. Mainly Nickelodeon games, but obviously there's a few others I love playing, like Overwatch and Evil Dead the game. I've been enjoying extremely. I play Fortnite once in a while. So these are experiences I'd like to bring to you guys. Halo, also I've been enjoying thoroughly with my friend. Halo Infinite has been great. So once streaming is a possibility on the regular here, it'll become more of a thing. And Nickelodeon Kart Racers 3 Slime Speedway is one of the games I would really like to start with, and just start with a marathon long stream of the entire game. But let's start out this week in Nickelodeon history with a show that started 30 years ago on September 19th, 1992, Nickelodeon GUTS. Do you have it?
Do you have it? Do you have it?
Created by Albie Heitch, Scott Fishman, and Brian Taylor, the show ran for 4 seasons of 160 episodes. The Extreme Game Show, hosted by Mike O'Malley and officiated by Moira Quirk, was a competition show that took 3 young athletes and had them compete against each other in 4 extreme versions of already established athletic events, culminating in a final round that took the 3 competitors up the Aggro Crag, the ultimate Nickelodeon mountain to climb. Whoever can make it to the top is the ultimate Guts champion, and they would earn a piece of the Aggro Crag to take home with them, a prize worthy enough to be on my mantle. I don't have as much confidence with Nickelodeon GUTS as I would with Legends of the Hidden Temple or Double Dare in my my victory. It would actually still be on the bottom of my list. I'm not saying I'm not athletic. You can ask anybody who has played touch football with me. I am not somebody easy to take down. I'm an absolute freight train with a lot of power for short periods of time. And depending on the events in front of me, I certainly could take on those in a Nickelodeon GUTS challenge. But I am not as confident going into it as I am those other challenges. That's not to say that I wouldn't still walk away with the gold and with that Aggro Crag to hold up above my head. Hey, I'm allowed to dream, all right? It's a small dream, but I'm allowed to have it. It certainly wasn't a show that I was tuning into as much as every other Nickelodeon game show, but I will tell you, from the thoughts I do have of Nickelodeon GUTS, everything really comes down to that ending, that final round. The Aggro Crag was legitimately a fun experience to watch, and it was an experience I definitely wanted to be a part of. So I have always said I'm willing to take on the Aggro Crag known as life in front of me, and I'm still near the bottom, but I'm trying. The confetti and glitter keeps popping me in the face. I keep falling down a couple of floors, but I'm going forward, moving on ahead, and hopefully one day I'll get that gold and I'll hold up that Aggro Crag piece. 29 years ago, on September 18th, 1993, we had the premiere of Rocko's Modern Life. Created by Joe Murray, the show ran for 4 seasons, 52 episodes, and 1 TV movie. Rocko's Modern Life is in my top 3 Nickelodeon shows ever. It's not my top 3 that I would tell other people, like if I had to put down an official list of the greatest ever, I would certainly put other shows and their significance at play here. But when it comes to my own subjective feelings and likes and dislikes, Rocko's Modern Life is in my top 3. It's a show that I'm going to put on loop in the background constantly for the rest of my life. I might pass away with Rocko's Modern Life playing in the background, and I am totally okay with that. I just hope it's during the episode Bye Bye Birdie, where Rocko and Heifer are watching Filbert's pet bird Turdy, and Heifer accidentally squishes the bird while sitting on it. And my favorite part of that episode is when Heifer is in complete denial of this bird being dead. He places the bird on a record player on a surfboard and plays some Surfer Boy music and has the bird going around in circles. And at the moment of that record going down, it like stops playing, is when Heifer accepts the reality of the situation. I hope it's during that moment, as dark as that may be. I absolutely love this show. It's brought me so much joy. You would think with that much love I would have a Rocko's Modern Life podcast, but no, that's something for a special time down the road when I'm really bored. I love the show so much, and it just continually brings me laughs to this day. And let me tell you, it's not due to childish humor that this show still brings me joy. It has been those sly adult jokes that they snuck into the show that some I was able to understand as a kid, and others I didn't get until I was rewatching this show as an adult. And wow, an entirely new lease on life for this animated cartoon in my life, because then certain jokes would just hit me in a whole new way. And I just found a whole new appreciation for the show. Not that I didn't as a kid. I absolutely loved Rocko's Modern Life, but it was during those reruns as a teenager and my early adult years that I really found just this extreme love for the show. And especially with that TV special, Rocko's Modern Life seemingly could work at any point in time as long as those behind it are still working with it. They were able to craft a perfect special, in my opinion, almost 20 years later. And next year will be 20 years of Rocko's Modern Life. I would love to see a return of the show in some way, even if it was another Rocko's Modern Life special. It was really disappointing to see Nickelodeon not promote that show themselves and play that on their channel instead of just passing it off to Netflix. But if you're a Netflix subscriber, it's one of those pieces of gold you get to enjoy every day you wake up. So, and that's called Rocko's Modern Life Static Cling. I can't believe I didn't say the name up until now. I have so much more to say about Rocko, and I will in this week's Top 5 segment if I didn't already make that very obvious as to what that would be for this week. But yeah, I'll have my top 5 Rocko's Modern Life episodes, like my definitive top 5. I had to really think about this. But a lot of what I love about Rocko is what would later bleed into SpongeBob SquarePants. So many of the names working behind the scenes on Rocko's Modern Life would go on to work for SpongeBob. So you can just see all of these similar waves back and forth between the two, from Steven Hillenburg to the voice of Tom Kenny and the writing and voice of Mr. Lawrence. And there's just so much in the similarities between the two, especially in those first 3 seasons, because a lot of the writing staff, like Dan Povenmire, worked on SpongeBob as well as worked on Rocko's Modern Life for a significant amount of time. So there's a lot to love here. The legacy of Rocko is still felt to this day through the legacy of SpongeBob SquarePants. And that makes me happy. If you have never checked out Rocko's Modern Life, you don't need to wait for my top 5. This is a show that is worth completing. It's 52 episodes, 52 half hours. There are those of you out there binging Law & Order for the 70th time, or binging Stranger Things. There's 52 episodes of Rocko's Modern Life. Binge that for once, and then you can mail me your thank you cards when you're done. 23 years ago, on September 21st, 2022, there's a lot of twos there, The Amanda Show finished its run on Nickelodeon. Created by Mr. Bailey, the show ran for 3 seasons of 46 episodes. The Amanda Show is essentially the kids' version of Chappelle's Show. And I'm not joking about that. Both shows are fairly similar. Both feature the title star coming out to a live audience on stage, and they basically continually throw off to other segments that are comedic bits featuring not only the main character themselves, but also a slew of other side actors that you would continually see in different sketches. Now, the only difference is the Amanda Show was mainly live sketches that they filmed in front of the live studio audience, but they also featured video segments as well, very much like Saturday Night Live. It was a bit more, honestly, like Saturday Night Live than all that is, or maybe it more so today because Saturday Night Live features more video segments now, you know, those digital shorts that they make. Whereas all that really didn't do many of those kind of videos. The Amanda Show did that more, although Saturday Night Live is more about the ensemble cast and not about one person. So it's a healthy mix. If you took Saturday Night Live, like the modern version, mixed it in with Chappelle's Show, you would get the Amanda Show. And that's for those of you who have never seen it. It was extremely funny. Amanda was absolutely hilarious, and she was well worth earning her own spinoff. She was that talented through all that, and it shows in just an episode or two how many different characters she's able to play and still get laughs. But then also still allow her castmates to shine as well, especially that of Drake Bell and Josh Peck, who would then go on to star in the spin-off Drake and Josh, not affiliated or related to the Amanda Show whatsoever, but they had just this chemistry on screen that was so palpable that it was obvious you had to get a show with these two starring in it. It was like when you were watching All That very early on and you saw those interactions between Keenan and Kel, and they just clicked. They are the Laurel and Hardy of the 90s, and Drake and Josh were the Laurel and Hardy of the 2000s. That is probably a bit of an overstatement, because Laurel and Hardy were like movie stars and were cross-generational. But in terms of those comedic duos that just are timeless, yeah, the 90s, Keen and Kel. 2000s, Drake and Josh. That's coming from a Nickelodeon mindset, but you tell me, you find me another duo throughout the 90s in entertainment that are still as cherished to this day as Keenan and Kel. And whoever you come up with is just going to be a lie. So, as far as Drake and Josh during the 2000s, you might have me with a few other choices there. But anyway, The Amanda Show is timeless in a lot of ways. I still think it's worth watching. I've gone back and watched reruns, and it holds up.
Quad dismissed! Bring in the dancing lobsters!
19 years ago, on September 19th, 2003, we had the final episode of Oswald. The show was created by Dan Yacarino, and the show ran for one season of 26 episodes. 12 years ago, on September 18th, 2010, we had the premiere of Fred the Movie on Nickelodeon. Now, for those of you who didn't grow up in the early ages of the internet, Fred was one of the first viral stars from YouTube. Was he the first? I don't think so, but in terms of that one subscriber who had the most followers, and people would then make videos talking about their dislike of that person, as far as I remember, it really started with Fred. Or at least he was just one of the most widely seen cases of it. Fred was a character created by Lucas Cruikshank, who started making videos on YouTube where he played a adolescent version of himself, a hyperactive kid. He high-pitched his voice and just did weird and crazy things. And between the voice and the antics and the way it was edited, he grew a very wide audience on YouTube at a time where there weren't people dropping everything that they were doing to become viral on YouTube or become a YouTube star. There really wasn't a career to be made at this point in time. There was just the art form of it. So Fred was just a character that Lucas created, and Fred blew up. Blew up to the point that for as much of the love he received, he also received the exact amount or even more so in hate, which you can call it jealousy, you can call it envy, you can call it whatever you want. The fact is, it still exists to this day whenever we as a general audience deem someone unworthy of fame and fortune and being in the limelight. And this kid who was just making videos, putting it on YouTube, all of a sudden found himself with all of this hate. But you know what? He persisted. Lucas persisted with the Fred character to the point that Fred jumped out of YouTube and onto television screens with his own movie, with Fred the Movie, which surprisingly has at least a decent amount of really good moments that include John Cena. And also, I think Flo from Progressive is the neighbor of Fred. I think she's the mom of his bully. Wait a minute, who's the bully here? Kevin. I watched Fred the Movie when it first premiered, just out of blatant curiosity, and because John Cena was announced as a guest star as Fred's father, which turns out, and it's kind of sad when you think about it, but Fred doesn't have a father in this world that he knows of, and so he imagines John Cena as his dad to just show up and give him advice. And I think about that and I go, wait, I was a kid, and it's not that my dad wasn't around, but he wasn't around all the time, and I was taking advice from Stone Cold Steve Austin in the 90s. So I kind of had a connection with Fred for a moment there. A slight connection. But nonetheless, it was a fine movie. It really wasn't offensive, and for as little that I knew of the character, I thought it was a well-created world, and they did a decent job. And I think it reflected back on Nickelodeon because they went back to the Fred pool 3 more times with 2 more movies, a full Fred trilogy of films on Nickelodeon, and 1 season of a Fred TV series before Lucas was then offered another show, Marvin on Nickelodeon. I don't think Lucas works with the Fred character any longer. I think he has left Fred behind, but what a foundation for him to have built an entire career on. What a pioneer in the world of YouTube, which I upload on. So much respect for those who came before me. And if you haven't seen Fred the movie, or you don't know about Fred, he's tough to recommend, but I don't think it's the most offensive thing you could waste your time on. It's certainly, in the realm of films I've watched, it certainly wouldn't hit on the bottom end of that list. It would probably hit the middle, though. 11 years ago, on September 19th, 2011, we had the premiere of Kung Fu Panda: Legends of Awesomeness. It was developed by Peter Hastings and ran for 3 seasons of 80 episodes. 1 year ago, on September 23rd, 2021, That Girl Lele. That Girl Lele was created by David A. Arnold, who I'd like to take a moment and talk about because it was just within the last week or so that David Arnold had passed away of what was said to be natural causes at his home on September 7th, 2022. David passed away at the age of 54, which is extremely young. And I'm closer to that age than I am away from it. So certainly at this time in my life, you reflect a little bit more on things. And it doesn't take much to get you emotional. When I saw the headlines that a Nickelodeon creator had passed away at such a young age, I certainly stopped for a moment to reflect upon him and to look at my own life and what am I doing. But to look a little bit at David and what he had done, he wrote for a bunch of well-known shows, Meet the Browns, House of Pain, a little-known show called Fuller House, in which he was not only a writer on for 2 episodes, he was a supervising producer on that show. And beyond his writing credits, he was also a stand-up comic being featured on Jamie Foxx Presents Laugh-A-Palooza alongside Jamie Foxx and Cedric the Entertainer, upon appearing on a few other shows to showcase his stand-up comedy. So this man did a lot in his life. Stand-up comedy, writer, producer, creator. And that's impressive. That's a lot. You know, there's some people who are lucky to do one of those things during their time on this planet. And David, in his short amount of time, was able to accomplish so much. So my heart goes out to his family, his friends during this time. But he left a plentiful of work that'll continue to entertain generations to come. It'll be found through many different means, DVDs, word of mouth, streaming. That Girl Lele got picked up for a 2nd season, so that show will continue to live on Nickelodeon for who knows how long. But one thing I do know is that it is time for Captain Eric's Top 5 of the Week, with this week's being my Top 5 Rocco's Modern Life episodes. Number 5 is an early one. It's one of my go-tos for a non-fan of Rocco. If you've never watched Rocco, chances are this is one of 2 episodes I'm going to pull out for you to watch. It is the first half of the 9th episode of the first season of Rocco's Modern Life. I'm talking about Carnival Knowledge, the episode in which Rocco and Heifer attend one of the worst carnivals I have ever seen, which also includes a straight elevator to hell as a ride.
Whoa, 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 big boy! You're a little too hefty for this ride. Safety first, eh?
30 bills? What a ripoff!
I told you.
Among so many adult jokes that I'm not going to list them here, I'm just going to say if you watch that episode once or twice, you may find yourself an extra little laugh or two. Number 4 on my list is Uniform Behavior, which is strangely the second half of the 9th episode of the second season of Rocco's Modern Life. Isn't that crazy? The first half of the 9th episode in season 1 I like. The second half of the 9th episode of season 2 I like even more. Uniform Behavior is straight up a shining parody within Rocco's Modern Life, and for some reason just makes me laugh each and every time with the simplest jokes. The opening joke is Heifer watching a trailer for a fictional movie called Robo Frog 4.
Coming soon, Robo Frog 4. This time, everyone gets hurt. Real bad.
Real bad.
And I have no idea why that little segment always produces a chuckle out of me every time I haven't seen it for a while. That, among a few other excellent moments in this episode, that is well worth your time, especially if you have seen The Shining. If you have seen The Shining, go and watch Uniform Behavior. Number 3 is another season 2 episode, the second half of episode 4, Road Rash, an episode that was written by Jeff Swampy Marsh and Dan Povenmire, the creators of Phineas and Ferb. And this kind of seems like a Phineas and Ferb type deal of what should we do today? Oh, let's cross-country road trip to go see this national monument, which is exactly what happens in this episode. Well, Phineas and Ferb would probably build a extreme contraption that would bring the national monument to their backyard. So let's be real here. They wouldn't actually just go on the road. But still, there's certain similarities you can find between the two here. And Road Rash is quite the adventure for Rocco and Heifer that takes them all the way to Flem Rock. And it's an adventure I'll never forget. And I'm disappointed that I myself will never be able to see Flem Rock in all of its glory. Unfortunately, it's now a choky chicken.
It's more glorious than I ever imagined.
All right, folks, show's over.
Look, Rock, a choky chicken, and I'm starved.
Number 2 here is shocking because I had originally pegged it as my number 1. It was an obvious choice, but then I remembered what my actual favorite episode of Rocco's Modern Life was, and this got bumped down to number 2. Talking about the 10th episode of season 3, it is the classic Wacky Deli, a 2-part episode all about making an animated show. It is a introspective look into what it takes to make Rocco's Modern Life, and in some cathartic way helped Joe Murray through a really tough time in his life. And on top of anything it could have helped anyone behind the scenes, is just an incredible episode in its own right. It objectively is the best episode of Rocco's Modern Life. If Barack Obama called me today and said, Captain Eric, I need to know what the best episode of Rocco's Modern Life is, I would say, sir, how did you get this number? And the answer you're looking for is Wacky Deli. But I will also tell you that you should watch Fish and Chumps. And maybe he would call me back to tell me that Fish and Chumps was superior. And he would be right about that. It's an episode that I just personally love. because of other reasons. And it's honestly that after I was, getting into animation more and actually paying attention to those who worked behind the scenes, I started noticing similar names here and there. And when I eventually got through to Rocko's Modern Life, I found that this episode I adored was written by Steven Hillenburg. And with all of the love I have for SpongeBob, it just became an overthrow of love on top of this episode. But more than anything else, honestly, is the love I have for this one line. There's multiple lines I love in this episode, but there's one line that I love. It's so nerdy. I'm just going to get a little nerdy here for you. But as the boys are waiting to get on the ship of Crappy Jack to go fishing, and he's just talking about all of these experiences that he has, it's Tom Kenny voicing Crappy Jack, who also voices Heifer, but apparently he is just completely ad-libbing all of his lines. And one of the most genius lines that I love is as he's driving away in the little dinghy. Within his ramblings, he mentions Davy Jones's locker, but then mentions how Mickey Dolenz and Peter Tork have lockers as well. And for those that don't know, Mickey Dolenz and Peter Tork are two members of the band The Monkees, which also features the band member Davy Jones. It's a genius level joke that Tom Kenny came up with in the moment.
We were taking on so much water that the bilge rats were packing their ditty bags and jumping over the side. I had me right hand on the helm and me left hand on the mainstay. Me left foot on the capstan, me other foot working the bilge pump, and me eyeballs were stirring the galley stew. That's when I heard a thunderous clap, so loud it would have driven any landlubber to his knees in agony. I turned leeward, in time to witness the foresail yard arm give way and come crashing down square on me midshipman's hindquarters. He let out a scream that be heard in Davy Jones' locker, Mickey Dolen's locker too, and Peter Tork's locker. All the monkeys had lockers. I said, why you cocky swallow, baby.
And ever since I realized that, I just fell in love with that joke even more. I fell in love with the character. I love Crappy Jack. He's one of my favorite, Rocko's Modern Life side characters. The entire episode is hilarious as both a Jaws parody and just turning the whole idea of fishing up on its head, and maybe you're the one getting fished. I absolutely love that episode. And by the way, Steven Hillenburg was also a writer on Wacky Deli alongside Dan Povenmire, who also was alongside Mark O'Hare, Martin Olson, and Joe Murray himself. Some names that should seem familiar if you're a fan of SpongeBob SquarePants and their writing staff and those who worked behind the scenes. That episode was also directed by Alan Smart and Jeff Swampy Marsh, one half of the Phineas and Ferb duo there, directing the episode. You can't go wrong with either of the episodes there. And honestly, depending on the day, I could swap between them, Wacky Deli and Fish and Chumps. Fish and Chumps, I didn't give the season an episode, which it's season 3, first half of episode 4. You can't go wrong with either or. They're both fantastic episodes and still kill all of these years later. There's so many other episodes of Rocko's Modern Life that almost made the top 10, and it was really tough to dwindle it down to these 5. And it could change by next year, who knows. But for now, that is going to be it for this week in Nickelodeon history. I appreciate each and every one of you for checking this podcast out. And if you would like, check out my other podcast, I'm Ready, a SpongePod Squarecast, dropping every Thursday on most conceivable podcasting platforms. And if you would like, you can reach Captain Eric at nickelodeonhistory@gmail.com, or you can follow me on Twitter at I'm Ready Podcast, on Instagram at SpongeBob Podcast, on Twitch if you search up The Captain Eric. And if you also search up SpongeBob Podcast, you will also find the official SpongePod Twitch account as well. All of the accounts will be in the podcast description as always. You can also purchase new and updated merch at the Redbubble link, either in the podcast description or in the link from any of my socials. Anything that comes in through my projects go directly back into my projects, and it's always appreciated. Last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, please subscribe to the Captain Eric YouTube channel. It's the easiest way to lighten my day, and I appreciate each and every one of you who have stopped along the way. As always, please stay safe, be kind to one another, and come aboard again to another This Week in Nickelodeon History.
On the Lord Hut, here a hut, Nick. On the Lord Hut, here a hut, Nick, Nick. On the Ricky Ticky Low, while living #1 Nickelodeon.